Hello, I'm Andrew Thomas Price, and today I'd like to show you 5 of the most useful bushcraft knots. Now, I'm all about practicality, and the best way to learn is to use it in a real-world environment, so I'm going to show you how I put up my tarp. And the knot I'm going to use at this end is the Evenk knot, or the Siberian hitch, and this was developed by the Evenk or the Tungusk people of Siberia, and it's very cold up there. So they often wear gloves, and that's why this knot was developed, because it allows you to do this hitch without having bare hands, and it's also very easy to undo the next day. So this is how I do it. So to begin with the Siberian hitch, make sure you have plenty of rope to play with, and I'm going to take my working end around the tree. So I've got a fair bit to work with here. Now I take my 4 fingers and I wrap the rope once around. Now I tilt my fingers down and bring them to the other side of the standing rope. I stick my thumb into here and give it another twist so that I can now pinch the working end of the rope. And I take a bite through here, pull it tight, and now I can draw it back towards the tree where it will stay securely fixed. Now the great thing about this knot is I can just pull on the working end here and it will come undone and I can pack up. The far end of my ridgeline is tied off with the Evenk hitch, and that's the fixed point. Now I need to take my ridgeline all the way back to this tree here, and to do this I'll be using a modification of a trucker's hitch. Now the trucker's hitch is a superb way of securing this end because it works like a ratchet. So as the name would suggest, it was originally designed to secure goods onto the back of a truck, and it can clamp those down really tightly. Now this modification was developed by Dave Canterbury, so I'll show you how it's done. So I take my ridgeline and I make a loop. Now you can see that loop there, and then I can twist that loop so it looks like this. Now I reach down from above, index finger and thumb, and I take a bite of the rope and I pull that bite towards the tree. So I'm pulling it directly in this way, and now I take the rope, the working end, which I can't reach. So I take my working end around here and this comes through. Now if I was doing a traditional trucker's hitch, I would have to pull this entire length through here, but as you can see I have a lot of rope, so I don't want to do that, and this is where the Dave Canterbury variation comes in. So now I take my fingers through here and I pull another bite, and now I can pull on that bite really hard and I can adjust the tension as tightly as I want here, and you can see that's a very neat knot. And then I can finish it with another half hitch. Voila! And that's the finished knot. And as you can see, there's plenty of tension on there for my ridgeline. So I'm going to make a loop like this and I'll twist it. Okay, so now it looks like this. And now I reach my index finger and thumb through here and I pull that towards the tree. Now I take this working line around the tree through here. Now normally I would have to pull this entire length through, but because I'm using this Dave Canterbury modification, I can just pull a little piece through here, pull that tight, and that's very, very secure. Now the great thing about knots is there's lots of different types of knots for all sorts of different purposes, and the only way to learn them is to get hands-on and practice. So I know it looks very complicated, but once you've done it a few times, it becomes instinctive. Now I've used the Evenk knot to go on the fixed end of my ridgeline, coming across here, and then we have my modified trucker's hitch, which is putting tension on here using this ratchet so my ridgeline is really taut. Now it is very useful to be able to adjust the position and the tension of the tarp. Now there are several knots you can use for that, And I'm going to show you one of them right now. This is called a Bachman's knot, and it was originally developed as a method of ascending wet or icy ropes for alpine climbing or mountaineering. But it works very well for this, so I'll show you how to do it. The Bachman's knot uses a carabiner. Now this is a full-size snapgate carabiner. You can use a miniature carabiner, which is a lot lighter, and because it's not really taking any weight, it makes very little difference. But I've also attached a piece of paracord here with a double fisherman's knot, and that becomes a Prusik loop. So that's all it needs to be, about a metre or so should be fine for that. So now I place my carabiner onto the top of the ridgeline, like so, and I take my Prusik loop, and very neatly I bring it through. And make sure you dress it as you go. You want this to be very neat. I'll bring it through again. I can use as much of this as I need to. If you're using a small miniature carabiner, you don't have quite as much room to work with. Prusik loops only work if you have a smaller diameter Prusik cord than the ridgeline itself. So what I need to be able to do now is to pull this across. Now this locks, but I can also slide it. So if I need to adjust that, I can slide it across like so. And once I put tension on this end of the Prusik, it locks up. So it's almost like a fist that grabs onto the ridgeline. But it is important that this cord is thinner, normally about half the diameter of the main line. Now, in order to fix this to the end of the tarp here, I'm just going to use a small stick. That can go through there, and then we can pull it all tight. So I'll slide this along to here, and now that's a fully adjustable. A Prusik loop is a very simple way of adjusting the tension on this end, and it can be as simple as a piece of paracord made into a loop like this, and I've tied it off using a double fisherman's knot here. Now all we need to do is to take this end. I keep the fisherman's knot at the bottom here, and I just bring this around and make sure we keep that nice and neat as we go. It's very important, as with the Bachman's knot, the Prusik should always be about half the diameter of the main line. And we always dress it as we go. We want this to be as neat as possible. So it should end up looking something like this. And then we have our Prusik. Now it works a bit like a fist grabbing hold of a rope like that. So if you can see that there, and then when it's not under tension, it can be moved very easily up and down the line. But as soon as I apply tension this way, it locks off very securely. And that holds so tightly you could use this to climb a rope, which is what it was originally developed for. So now to adjust my tension on here, I'm just going to fix my Prusik loop to the top of the tarp here. So I just use a stick that can go through there, and now I can just pull the whole thing as tight as I need to. Now a good method of adjusting the tension on your guy lines is known as the Farrimond friction hitch, and it's a better option than the taut line hitch because this one is a quick release, so it can be tidied up much easier the next day. So we start off, we make a loop like this on the working end of the rope. Make sure you have enough to work with here. And then we make a type of Prusik. So it just goes through here. Make sure you keep that as neat as possible. And dress it as you go. And now we take a bite of the working end of the rope. And that goes through here. And we just slide the Prusik like so. So make sure it's nice and neat. And now I can just pull down on here, and I can tension up my guy line. A good method of getting rid of any loose bits of rope you don't want hanging around that you can trip over is hanking. So what we do is we take it around our little finger and thumb, make a figure 8 motion like this. Make sure you keep enough to finish with. And now we tie it all together as tightly as possible. and then just make a little half hitch. Put your index finger in there to keep it open. Pull that tight, and that's a nice neat way to finish. This is how I put up my tarp. If you know a better way, please feel free to argue with me in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share with your friends. And I'll see you next time.